Hello everyone and welcome to our YouTube channel Why Daily Spoiler. Diane shoot after learning Jack and Nikki's shocking truth.
Fired shots. When Diane overhears Jack and Nikki's shocking secret, she pulls the trigger. At first, the secret is not very big. A financial anomaly? A reorganization of the company? No. In a private conversation in the dim hallway between the Abbott boardroom and the private lift, Jack and Nikki discuss something more intimate and explosive, a backup plan they have been secretly discussing for months. This plan would give the Abbott family a competitive edge in a takeover attempt and would necessitate the character assassination of a specific individual in order to proceed. The main topic of their discussion is how to fabricate a story about Diane in order to discredit and marginalize her in the eyes of shareholders. They take slander seriously. Their plan was to fabricate evidence that Diane had acted in an unethical but legally legal manner in order to support their claim that she should be kicked off the company's advisory board. They agree on a line. We'll have to make her appear reckless, a liability the board can't afford. Nikki, who has been attempting to mediate between the Abbotts and Newmans, refers to it as damage control, while Jack, who is extremely pragmatic, refers to it as surgical maneuvering. Diane hears that line, a liability the board can't afford. Jack and Nikki never meant to be overheard. They talk in low tones. But by the awful luck of soap opera design, Diane comes around the corner with a bunch of press kits and catches a single word in the air like a charge. She becomes motionless. The camera lingers on her head's slight tilt, which indicates that the world below her is changing. Diane's déjà vu, reopening of past wounds. Diane Jenkins has been a fiery combination of teeth and vulnerability in soap operas. She has been used, abandoned, loved, and betrayed over the years. She has old scars from the Abbott family, including a public divorce, a business betrayal that cost her millions, and unspoken humiliations that never fully went away. The Abbott family has gone through her like wind through curtains. She is about to be labeled a liability by two of the most influential people in the city, which brings back a lot of memories. A montage is shown to us, showing Diane at the trial years ago, her livelihood being taken away from her by corporate scheming, her private conversations with Phyllis and other confidants, and the nights she sat up wondering how she could prove herself. These flashbacks are essential because they provide a human explanation for her subsequent actions. In addition to seeing the moral line she crosses, viewers should feel her hurt. As though her feet were burdened by decades, Diane leaves the hallway. She doesn't visit a friend or the police. In the dead of night, she instead returns home, sits in her car, and opens a locked drawer that she keeps for necessities, like cash wrapped in old envelopes, a spare phone, and a small handgun she purchased a year prior following a scare. She promises herself that she will confront the betrayer, demand an apology, and hold them accountable for their actions. She says she'll ask for answers rather than reckoning, but premeditation in soap operas is frequently incremental. The confrontation, threatening words. Pretending to be in need of dropping off misplaced documents, Diane makes her way back to the building in time to catch Jack and Nikki leaving the boardroom. Her voice is brittle, practiced indignation meets raw anger as she confronts them in the hallway. What did they mean? She asks. Startled, Jack tries to reassure her, reaching for her hand. Nikki does so. The audience can see that they want to defuse the situation. They make an effort to apologize and clarify that the conversation was casual and strategic rather than personal. They assure Diane that they will never put her reputation in danger. They are blind to the impact of the words. As Diane listens, her fingers move on the barrel. The gun, which is largely concealed by a coat, is resting on her hip. The conversation is staccato. Jack says, Diane, we never, first. Nikki says, meant this, and moves forward. You intend to cause me to become a scandal? For a board vote, to throw me out like such garbage. Diane's words falter. The sound gets muffled. Jack maintains that rather than acting, they were theorizing. It was about optics, Diane, he says. Business appearances. You are aware of the process. Diane's eyes flicker from astonishment to a stern determination. She reiterates, corporate optics. You mean to kill my name, the only thing I have left? Jack tries to grab the firearm. He extends his hand. A single shot rings as the weapon discharges during the grapple. Not everybody gets hit. It's a chaotic moment. People yell. Papers fly. The transition from whisper to gunshot is incredibly brief. Crucial narrative decision. Who gets struck? Jack, Nikki, or another character who moves in front of them could be wounded by the show. Perhaps Phyllis would put herself in the way of Diane and Nikki and take the bullet. A stray bullet hits a nearby wall, shattering glass, and Diane's shot grazes Jack's shoulder, causing a serious but non-fatal wound in order to maximize moral complexity for this arc. When Phyllis tries to step in, the debris only slightly injures her. This decision maintains the physical violence's non-fatal nature while making it emotionally and legally devastating. Chaos and repercussions, prompt aftermaths. The hall erupts. Diane is tackled by security. Jack falls to the ground, his shirt white rapidly turning red as he grips his bleeding shoulder. Cradling his head, Nikki calls for an ambulance. The building security team carries Diane into handcuffs as the lobby fills with executives, solicitors, and members of the press. She manages to pry the gun away. The paramedics show up. At the scene, Jack's wound is stabilized. The cameras are ruthless. The event is broadcast on live feeds. As if staring into a broken mirror, Genoa City observes. We keep looking at Diane's face. This is a woman whose defiance fights with her regret, not a cartoon villain. The officers read her rights and she whispers, "You are going to ruin me," as she turns to face Jack. The scene closes with a long shot of Diane in the back of a police cruiser, her face illuminated by lights that resemble interrogation questions. Police and legal charges, questions, and arrests. The legal system works swiftly. Diane faces charges of attempted murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The specific charges will be refined or changed depending on the jurisdictional drama the show wishes to explore. Jack survives the gunshot, but his wound necessitates surgery and is severe enough to prevent him from attending the boardroom and from taking painkillers, which makes his subsequent testimony more difficult. Diane's arrest is humiliating and widely publicized. Her lawyer, a tough but moral fixer, arraigns her for bail, citing mental distress, provocation, and a history of being singled out by corporate schemes. The defense crafts a story that portrays Diane as a damaged individual who attempted to obtain justice through other channels, but was turned down. The prosecution presents Diane as a threat who unexpectedly fired after bringing a gun into a boardroom hallway. The trial will be shaped by eyewitnesses, security footage, and mobile clips. Anticipate the show to employ evidence in ways that divide viewers into opposing camps. #FreeDiane versus #JusticeForJack trends are circulating on social media, both for viewers and within the show. The boardroom public relations and power shifts aftermath. Jack's injury has immediate repercussions for the company. Unable to approve the crucial votes the Abbotts had planned. He is in the hospital. A vote of confidence turns into a tumultuous process when the board selects an acting chair. In a move that appears self-protective even as it is presented as required for corporate governance, Nikki, who is politically incensed and emotionally devastated, uses her power to demand an internal review and to demand Diane be removed permanently from any advisory roles. Victor Newman, meanwhile, sees a political opportunity given his own lengthy, if tumultuous, relationship with Diane. In addition to publicly offering support for Jack's recovery to Nikki and the Abbott family, he also uses his influence to influence the Abbott structure in private. A new front in the elite's war is opened by Victor's involvement, reorganizing board alliances, PR narratives, and philanthropic funding. As a key witness, Phyllis confronted the scene and almost was shot. Her actions strained her relationship with Diane, who alternately loves and hates her. Abby and the rest of the Abbott family debate whether to support Jack's leadership while he recovers or to take advantage of the chaos. The media, court, and morality trying out feelings. The emotional core of the arc is Diane's trial. The authors can choose between a quick court case with a plea and a drawn-out courtroom drama filled with testimony, cross-examinations, and emotional recriminations. This is how taking the longer route benefits you. Witnesses described the Jacobean history of humiliation Diane had experienced, corporate conflicts, and her mental state. Performances by former friends, such as Phyllis, who battled loyalty and truthful testimony, depict the tangled loyalties of small towns. Because he is in pain and becomes less trustworthy when being cross-examined, Jack's testimony is brittle. He maintains that their conversation was hypothetical but strategic, and that he never intended to paint Diane as a liability. His acknowledged desire to uphold corporate interests and his prior prejudices against Diane cast doubt on his credibility. In a stunning dramatic turn of events, a videotaped board meeting emerges in which Jack does mock Diane, albeit not using the exact words she heard, but rather language that could be interpreted as disrespectful. This blurs the distinction between provocation and premeditation in the show. At the center of the drama is Diane's testimony. She talks openly about years of being dismissed as a difficult woman, systemic power disparities, and humiliation. She might be angry. She might cry. Her attorney contends that the shooting was an act of desperation rather than pure malice, because it was motivated by prolonged emotional provocation, as well as a legitimate fear for her future livelihood. The jury and the audience grapple with challenging issues, such as whether emotional suffering ever justifies violence. Can a life of being disparaged in public serve as a mitigating circumstance? The authors can examine gendered double standards regarding violence and anger in the courtroom. A woman is criticized as hysterical when she lashes out, while a man is frequently interpreted as decisive. The arc gets its teeth from this thematic layer. Verdict and ripple implications, plea, acquittal, or guilt. There are multiple narrative resolution options. A wise dramatic decision is to arrive at a morally complex resolution rather than a straightforward guilty/not guilty conclusion. Plea agreement with probation and counseling. Diane agrees to community service, counseling, and a restraining order in exchange for a reduced charge of reckless endangerment or aggravated assault reduced to unlawful use of a weapon. This acknowledges the gravity of firing a gun without turning her into a pariah. Although the agreement splits public opinion, Diane is still able to maintain her presence in Genoa City. Conviction with mitigating factors. Diane is convicted but given a sentence that reflects the harm and her previous provocations. This sentence includes community service, a brief jail sentence, and mandatory mental health treatment. The penalty is harsh enough to alter her life, but it won't make her intentions clear. Self-defense acquittal. The jury finds her not guilty, citing perceived threat and provocation. Narratively, this is explosive. People will be thrilled or angry. If selected, it will recast Diane as both a heroine and a pariah, escalating enduring family disputes. A plea agreement works best for this arc because it gives the author's long-term story flexibility and is realistic for high-profile cases. Future drama is set up by Diane's ability to rebuild despite paying a high price. Private penance, repercussions, and rebuilding. The city is different once the legal dust settles. Although Jack recovers physically, he still has scars on both his body and his reputation. While some see him as the victim, others see him as a provocateur whose words are more hurtful than his injury. Nikki is equally consumed by anger and guilt. Although she publicly apologizes to Diane, she secretly tries to keep the business safe. Their relationship has been permanently changed. Diane starts her required community service and therapy. At women's organizations, she speaks about dignity and how cruelty is covered up by power. She is a complex ally who advocates for mandatory mediation before extreme measures like public smear campaigns are ever carried out, and for reform in the way well-known corporations resolve internal conflicts. She transforms into a brand new advocate who is a living contradiction. Guilty, yet believable. Victor takes advantage of the situation and attempts to install a chair at Abbott that is more Newman-friendly. A boardroom coup has repercussions for the family. The Abbotts defend themselves. The game of power chess goes on. The long haul, hauntings, and new alliances. The arc is still a ghost in town a year later. Diane's public image has been reframed as both victim and aggressor, and she has repayment obligations. She makes a tentative alliance with a journalist who helps mold her story from dangerous villain to woman pushed too far. The friend group breaks up and changes. Nikki and Diane maintain a fragile civility. Phyllis supports Diane in public, but their relationship is tense in private. Jack rejoins the organization, but he has vulnerabilities. His near-death experience and the realization that his leadership style contributed to the environment that resulted in the shooting have haunted him. He makes amends while simultaneously securing his legacy by enacting new corporate policies regarding internal communication and the board's handling of personnel optics. The reason this arc functions. This story succeeds because it defies simple moral conclusions, exploring how public humiliation, corporate weaponization of reputations, and the pressure cooker history of small-town grudges can all explode in a single, tragic moment is the goal, not sensationalizing violence. The arc questions. The gendered perspective on violence and rage. The morality of corporate public relations tactics that compromise personal lives in favor of shareholder narratives. The psychological toll of being excluded from positions of authority on a regular basis. The messy nature of justice and the rarity of moral closure in court decisions. Diane pulling the trigger is a pivot, not a joke. The town gets more complicated rather than safer or purer. Relationships are put to the test again in the furnace of trauma, and people who were once straightforward adversaries become complex. Future steps. A covert recording of a private conversation that implies someone else encouraged Diane by spreading untrue rumors about Jack's intentions and points to a wider plot to undermine the Abbotts comes to light. Phyllis must make her own decision about whether to publish a candid memoir that could expose Genoa City's hypocrisy or clear Diane. A political perspective. Nikki is leading a contentious corporate responsibility bill, and the shooting ignites a local policy discussion about workplace mediation and gun safety in Genoa City. Diane's redemption arc involves her coaching at-risk women in negotiation skills and launching a nonprofit organization that creates mediation tools for small businesses, thereby examining whether the woman who fired a gun can turn into a force for violence prevention.